Hey guys, tonight we're stepping barefoot into the ocean. Well, metaphorically. You're standing at the edge of a beach so quiet it almost hums. The sky above you dusted with stars that look close enough to pluck from the sky. The air is warm, salted, and still. And behind you, a canoe carved from sacred wood rests in the shadows, waiting. You're about to leave solid ground with no compass, no GPS, and no written map. Just the heavens above, the sea's whisper, and your own swaying hips to tell you where to go. And no pressure, but if you mess it up, you'll probably just vanish into 2,500 miles of open ocean. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And drop a comment below telling me where you're watching from and what time it is there. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push off from shore in the dead of night, the canoe creaking gently beneath your feet. This isn't an accident. Midnight is when the stars speak clearest. The ocean around you flattens into something like black glass. It doesn't always do that, of course, but tonight, you're lucky. The moon hangs low, lighting the curved sail and casting your long shadow into the boat's ribs. You're not alone. Navigation is a communal rhythm, but in this story, it's you holding the knowledge. Or at least trying to. Somewhere beneath your ribs, tucked behind your last meal of roasted breadfruit, that knot of worry hasn't quite untied itself. How do you know where you're going? You look up. There, a cluster of stars you've memorized since childhood. Nahiku, the Big Dipper, leans toward the horizon. To your left, Orion's belt marches with calm confidence. You remember what your teacher said. Stars don't lie. You just have to listen. You begin your chant. Not a song, really. More like a soft, rhythmic hum that helps anchor your focus. The canoe rocks. The stars shift. You adjust. This part is crucial. The entire voyage depends on your ability to trust the sky's quiet cues. Historians still argue whether ancient navigators memorized fixed routes or adapted constantly to conditions. Either way, you aren't guessing. You are reading. You check the horizon line. The star is rising exactly where you expected. It aligns with the tip of your outstretched finger. That's your direction tonight, toward that single point of light, so distant it might as well be a dream. But it's not. It's your guidepost. Ancient Hawaiian navigators or wayfinders didn't use written maps. They didn't need to. The ocean was a living chart, and every night offered a new edition of the sky's edition. With enough memory and training, you could sail from Tahiti to Hawaii, a journey of more than 2,000 miles, with only the stars as your compass. A modern sailing GPS might feel easier, sure, but it doesn't sing to you. It doesn't glow faint blue in the pre-dawn hush. It definitely doesn't ask you to hum along. The stars aren't just tools here. They're relatives. They have names, personalities, and long histories of guiding your people across the Pacific. You whisper one of their names under your breath, more like a greeting than a fact. Somewhere behind you, a crewmate snores softly. Even that is comforting. You let your body settle into the rhythm. Breathe in, sway with the canoe. Glance up. Breathe out, note the pattern, adjust your mental map. Repeat. It's both incredibly complex and deeply peaceful, like assembling a jigsaw puzzle in the dark with only your fingertips, and then realizing the puzzle is floating. A shooting star slices across the sky. You don't flinch. It's just a distraction, like a pop quiz from the universe. You pass. The canoe creaks again, and a gentle splash interrupts your thoughts. A flying fish arcs beside you, skipping across the surface like a skipped stone. You smile. A sign of calm water ahead? Or maybe just a fish with poor night vision. You're now a few hours into your journey, and the land behind you is no longer visible. You've committed. There's no turn back button out here unless you count mass panic, which your ancestors would definitely not approve of. Instead, you continue watching, listening, adjusting. The stars shift slowly with the Earth's rotation, and so must you. It's a dance. And like any good dancer, you don't think about every move, you feel it. You remember a tale told to you as a child. One legendary navigator could sail blindfolded for days. His secret? He listened not just with ears or eyes, but with bones. The canoe spoke to him in pressure and pitch. You're not quite there yet, but tonight, you're starting to understand. The canoe creaks again beneath your feet, but this time you don't look down. You're learning to trust it. The vessel is alive in its own way, not just wood and lashings, but a breathing thing. Responsive, patient, and tuned to the sea like a seasoned hula dancer to a pahu drum. This is no ordinary canoe, it's a waia kaulua, a double-hulled marvel that cuts through waves with grace and steadiness, even in rough weather. You begin to understand why some called it a floating village. It holds not just people, but a lineage. You walk carefully along the narrow deck between hulls, balancing like a cat on a ledge. The stars are still overhead, but your attention drifts downward now. The sea tells its own story, and the canoe listens. Every joint, every curve of the hull, every cord of braided coconut fiber lashing, it all matters. It breathes with the ocean. You kneel and run your hand along the lashed connections. No nails, no screws, just perfectly tensioned sennit that flexes, stretches, and sighs in rhythm with the swells. The materials are familiar, breadfruit wood, ulu, and maybe some koa in the beams, but the craftsmanship is from another level of patience. It took months, maybe years, to build a canoe like this. Not just because it was labor-intensive, but because every part was spiritual. Trees were asked for permission before being cut. The canoe had a name. You whisper it now, just in case it's listening. Historians still debate whether these canoes were invented independently across Polynesia or shared through centuries of voyaging knowledge. Either way, you're in one now, and that's something. And that's something. You lean into the lashings and close your eyes, you feel it. The low, humming resonance of the sea moving through the canoe's frame. It's subtle. You wouldn't catch it in a noisy harbor or during a modern boat ride full of gas engines and shouted directions. But here, miles from land and accompanied only by starlight, you begin to feel the canoe's heartbeat. A gentle bump catches your attention. One of the outriggers dips, rises, then settles. It's nothing dramatic, just the ocean reminding you that it too is awake. You shuffle to the side and peek over the edge. Phosphorescent sparkles like fireflies under glass. For a moment, you imagine the ocean as one great illuminated net, and your canoe is a single bead strung across its surface. A crewmate hands you a gourd of water. It's slightly cool, collected earlier from a freshwater stream on the island you left behind. You sip slowly. Water is precious. Every ounce calculated. You have enough, but never too much. This canoe isn't designed for extravagance. It's designed for survival and serenity. You think about how the canoe responds to your weight. When you shift, it shifts. It feels like dancing with a partner who already knows your next move. You don't direct it. You negotiate. The stars, the hull, the water beneath, all of it is part of a larger choreography. Now you lean back and remember a story about a navigator who claimed he could hear changes in water temperature through the hull's resonance. Cooler water is denser, he had said, and it speaks with a lower note. Maybe it's true, maybe it isn't. But out here, surrounded by nothing but possibility, you begin to listen more closely. Just in case. The wind picks up slightly. You check the sail, a graceful curved sheet woven from lahala, the dried leaves of the hala tree. Not a single stitch of modern fabric. It flutters like a sleeping bird, then catches a gust and pulls gently at the mast. The canoe hums again. And now, with the wind whispering in one ear and the sea murmuring in the other, you realize something calming. You are no longer going somewhere. You are simply with the canoe, and it knows the way. Your teacher once told you that a good navigator doesn't control the canoe. He becomes part of it. His heartbeat synchronizes with the creaking lashings. His breath matches the rise and fall of the hulls. It sounded like mystical nonsense at the time, but now, your legs swaying slightly with the canoe's motion, you're not so sure. Out here, everything blends: sky, water, vessel, and self. You run your hand along the side again and feel the rough texture of the wood, worn smooth where generations of hands once steadied themselves. This canoe has been places. Maybe not this exact one, but its soul, its design, its balance, its memory has crossed thousands of miles of ocean before you were even born. And it didn't need a steering wheel. It needed hips. And trust. And a quiet kind of knowing that most people forget how to use when they grow up. You glance forward. The stars are still there. The crew is resting. The wind is gentle. The canoe breathes. And you're starting to breathe with it. The stars are still guiding you, but now you're reading them more deliberately. You lie back on the curved hull, your spine matching the arc of the canoe, your eyes drinking in the glittering map above. And it is a map, just not the kind that folds or beeps at you when you miss a turn. In the tradition you're now apprenticing yourself to, whether you like it or not, this sky is known as the Star Dome, a celestial bowl that turns above the ocean. Each star rises at a consistent point on the eastern horizon and sets predictably in the west. You begin to recognize patterns you've seen countless times before. Only now, you're not just admiring them, you're depending on them. There's a line of stars called Ka Iwikua Mo'o, the backbone, stretching like a glittering spine through the heavens. You've practiced tracking it for years. Tonight, it's your anchor, your reference line. You hum softly to keep pace with it, like tracing a finger across the same page of a beloved bedtime story. You use star lines, imaginary paths across the night sky. Each line consists of specific stars used to travel in a particular direction, like connecting invisible train tracks in the air. The brighter the star, the more confident you feel. Your favorite is Hokulea, known to the rest of the world as Arcturus. When it rises due east, you're homeward bound. When it sets, your direction pivots with it. Historians still debate whether ancient Polynesian navigators memorized hundreds of individual stars or used broader constellations as cues. Either way, there's no mistaking the feeling of looking up and finding an old friend glowing right where you expected. The stars aren't scattered randomly. They're scheduled. They're structured. They're the calm librarians of the night sky whispering, "You're on track. Keep going." Of course, reading the sky isn't just about recognizing stars. It's about watching how they move together. The rising and setting points form a kind of compass, split into segments like the spokes of a sea-bound wheel. You've memorized each angle, each sequence. You know that when Pleiades, called Macaulay, rises, certain winds are near. When it sets, a new season whispers at the horizon, and you can't just look straight up and call it a night. You also track how the stars rotate as you move across the ocean. That rotation tells you how far you've drifted north or south from your imagined line of travel. It's like being on a treadmill with stars above you as mile markers. Except you're running barefoot, the floor's made of waves, and your pedometer is literally the sky. One of the older wayfinders once taught you to see the sky with your ribs. It sounded dramatic. Maybe it was. But now, as your breath slows and your body rocks gently with the canoe, you get it. The stars don't just light the path. They press it into you. You trace an invisible line from the tip of your nose to the horizon, calibrating your direction by feel. It's almost unfair how peaceful it is. And a little funny. Somewhere out there, people are probably stuck in traffic, their GPS recalculating for the 4th time. Meanwhile, you're using a star that's been dead for 1,000,000 years and still showing up for you. You smile. The night sky is loyal like that. You stretch your arms overhead and let them float weightlessly in the warm air. Another star, one you don't usually rely on, flickers into view. You try to remember its name. Maybe it was part of a line used by your teacher's teacher, back when the chants were longer and no one ever wrote anything down. And speaking of chants, You hum one now, barely audible, something about the rising of Hikyanelia, a sister star to Hokulea. It's said the star got its name from a woman with eyes like salt water and patience like lava rock. Whether true or not, her name keeps your mind steady. Somewhere below you, the sea churns on, gentle but firm. The canoe holds its path. You're moving, but you don't feel rushed. There's a strange pleasure in not knowing exactly where the stars are taking you, only that they are. You roll onto your side and squint upward. The sky dome has shifted. Slightly. Just enough for you to adjust your heading. You whisper the change to the crew. Nothing urgent, just a correction. And then, again, quiet. The kind of quiet that tastes like wood smoke and salt, like everything ancient and good. The kind that fills your ears not with silence, but with the sound of belonging. You're not navigating with tools. You are the tool. The observer, the interpreter, the humble translator of starlight into movement. It's ridiculous, really, how powerful it makes you feel, like some sleep-deprived sea wizard with strong calves and a good memory. And you're starting to realize, here under the sweep of this ancient sky, this is what knowledge feels like when it's woven into the body. You don't carry it in a bag. You carry it in your chest, your spine, the tilt of your head and hips. A star blinks. Another confirms its place beside it. The sky's in motion, and so are you. The stars are reliable, but the sea has its own opinions. Tonight it's being gentle, almost flirtatious, lifting the canoe like a lullaby. But you know better than to trust it completely. You've learned to listen, not just with your eyes and ears, but with your skin. And now, with the sky settled into its rhythm, your attention drifts downward to the water's voice. You crouch, trailing your fingers over the edge of the canoe. The waves aren't crashing or even choppy, they're organized, rhythmic. You feel the steady pulse of Ehukai, the long ocean swells that travel for miles without breaking. These aren't random movements, they come in lines, regular, predictable, like breath. And you, the wayfinder, are expected to know what they mean. Polynesian navigators read waves like you might read a subway map. There are different types. The Moana deep sea swells come from thousands of miles away and hit the canoe at consistent angles. Then there are kulau, generated by nearby winds, fickle and impulsive. You learn to distinguish them, not just by how they feel against the hull, but by how your hips shift in response. Which brings us to the next truth you never thought you'd take seriously. Your hips know before your head does. You sit low on the canoe now, spine upright, letting your body relax into a sway. At first you resist. Surely this can't be how people used to navigate. Surely this is more poetic than practical. But then you notice it. The very subtle, almost imperceptible lean of the canoe. Not enough to be seen, only enough to be felt. Your right hip rises ever so slightly, and you realize the swell has shifted by just a few degrees. Historians still argue whether this form of wave reading was taught systematically or simply absorbed through experience. Either way, you're absorbing it now, and it's not through lectures, it's through muscle memory. You begin to read the water with your whole body. Your ankles catch the rhythm first, then your knees, your core, your shoulders stay loose. This is not the stiff, straight-backed sailing of naval academies. This is dance. Oceanic Tai Chi. A pulse of wave energy glides under the canoe from the east. You feel it in your ribs, a cross-current whispering a correction. You mentally adjust your heading, not through stars this time, but through sway. You wonder if your ancestors ever called this feeling sea intuition, or if it was simply known as Tuesday. The wind has gone quiet, which makes the swells easier to read. You close your eyes, yes, eyes, and just feel. The pitch of the hull, the interval between wave crests. You can even tell when one pattern fades and another begins, like switching from jazz to waltz. A crewmate shifts behind you and the canoe answers with a lazy roll. For a moment, you're both floating in sync, like two notes in a sleeping melody. It's hard to believe this is navigation. It feels more like meditation with higher stakes. You remember an old chant about a navigator who could detect island proximity by how the swells changed character. More chaotic near land, more focused far from it. You listen now, carefully. The swell's voice is smooth, uninterrupted. You're still in the deep blue middle of nowhere. And weirdly, that comforts you. You open your eyes and look at the horizon. Not for landmarks, but for clues. The clouds are moving differently now, slightly out of sync with the swell. That's your next cue. Where water meets sky, there's always a secret being told. You just have to know the language. And tonight the ocean is whispering in full sentences. A sudden splash to your left, a flying fish again, or maybe just the sea teasing you. Either way, it jolts you into remembering you're not alone out here. The ocean is full of signs, signals, little nudges to let you know you're not forgotten. You hum a tune. Not one you were taught, but one you invent on the spot. The pitch rises with each crest, falls with each trough. It's not for the crew. It's not even for the canoe. It's for you. A way to keep the rhythm going, to hold your attention soft and alert. And then, for a while, nothing happens. The sea hums. The stars glide. The canoe rocks. And you, floating quietly in this watery void, begin to feel something close to peace. Maybe the strangest part is that you don't miss technology. No compass, no glowing screen, no voice assistant telling you to turn left in 400 feet. Just hips, waves, and a sky that doesn't forget your name. The swell shifts again. Just a degree. Just a sigh. And your hips, always a half second ahead, tell you it's time to adjust. So you do. You shift your weight slightly to the left. Just a quiet lean. And the canoe responds like it's known you your whole life. There's a brief delay, the kind that barely registers, and then your hips catch it again. The subtle realignment with the water's rhythm. You don't think, you feel. Your core does more calculating in these moments than a pocket calculator could ever dream of. It's not magic, though it might feel like it. It's years, generations of muscle memory passed down through bodies, not books. No one ever wrote, "Trust your hips." But they didn't need to. The canoe taught you. The ocean reinforced it. And your own stubborn balance, earned through stumbles and bruised pride, confirmed it. You're in the navigator's seat, and tonight that means your entire job is to pay attention. Not to speak much. Not to steer like a car. Just to feel. You're interpreting pressure changes through your bones, the way a violinist reads a string's tension, or a baker knows the dough is ready by touch alone. Historians still debate how much of this navigation was physical instinct versus deliberate instruction. There are no written records. Just chance. Chance and knees that know when a wave is lying. You squat a little lower and close your eyes. Just know there's a slight eastward pull now. Not much. Just enough that if you ignore it for an hour, you'll be off course by 10 miles. That's the thing about ocean travel. The ocean doesn't yell. It nudges. And if you're too proud or too distracted to feel it, you're going to end up asking a turtle for directions. Another swell passes. You sense it coming before it arrives. Not because of sound or sight, but because your hips rise, and then your left shoulder lifts a beat later, the canoe twisting slightly under your knees. You smile. You caught it. This is your compass now. A fleshy pendulum mounted mid-torso. No batteries required. A gust of wind stirs the sail and briefly disrupts the rhythm. The canoe groans softly. You adjust again. This time with more care. If the wind's shifting, it might be signaling something. You scan the sky. No clouds yet. But the stars on the eastern horizon twinkle more erratically now. That's not just pretty. It's a warning. Twinkling often means turbulence in the upper air. You hum again, calming yourself more than anything else. Your voice doesn't break the silence. It fills it. And soon, your breath matches the canoe's sway again. You're back in sync. You think of a story once told around a cooking fire about a young navigator who lost the stars for 3 nights and had to rely entirely on the sea's whisper. The elders didn't punish him when he returned off course. They just gave him more time in the canoe, alone, to practice his hips. It was punishment, yes, but also wisdom. Because out here, your body is your tool. It's your compass, your inclinometer, your tide detector. You don't get to outsource it to technology. You are the technology. Now, with the sky still mostly clear and the sea steady, you focus again on your position, not in miles or latitude, but in feeling. You are northeast of your mental line. You don't know that, but your hips do. So you slide slightly back on the canoe's edge, redistributing your weight, and the hull sighs in approval. The others are still asleep, or pretending to be. One of them shifts and lets out a dream-laced snort. You stifle a laugh. A sea navigator is still human after all. You look up again at Hokulea. It has moved since you last checked, just enough to confirm what your hips already told you. You're back on the correct line. The ocean has accepted your apology. There's a small wave crest just ahead, barely noticeable except for the tiny silver flicker of moonlight dancing across it. You brace. Not because it's dangerous, but because you want to read it properly. When it reaches you, your hips rise and fall like breath, and you let out a soft, satisfied hum. Nailed it. In a world where we glorify precision instruments and hyper-measured data, there's something deeply rebellious and deeply calming about trusting your own weight on moving wood. No beeping confirmation, no satellite validation, just sway and subtlety. You wonder for a moment if this ability ever fades. If the old navigators still sway in their chairs when no one's watching. If their hips twitch unconsciously when they feel a shift in the wind at the grocery store. Maybe they do. Maybe once the ocean enters your bones, it never quite leaves. You breathe again. The canoe rocks again. The stars shine steadily, their language clear but never loud. And your hips. They're already speaking the next sentence. The sun hasn't yet risen, but a paler blue begins to nudge the edges of the sky. The stars will fade soon. You savor them while they last, and just when you think the night has given you all its secrets, you spot something low on the horizon. A fluttering speck, barely visible against the lightening canvas of morning. A bird. Your eyes sharpen. It's not just any bird. The wings stretch long and pointed, elegant, deliberate strokes. A Kauai ula, the red-tailed tropic bird. Out this far, it isn't fishing for fun. It's returning to land. Birds are your other navigators. Not in books, in feathers. You stand slowly and watch. This is one of the rituals now, watching birds and interpreting their mood, as if they're weather vanes with opinions. If it stays low and steady, it's commuting home. If it climbs in circles, it's scouting for fish. Different birds, different cues. The Polynesians knew this. Not in theory, in survival. Frigate birds, for example, don't land on water. If you see one headed in a straight line in the evening, you follow it. It's not being poetic. It's going home to roost. And wherever that is, there's land. You scan the horizon. Another dot. This one smaller, flappier. Probably a naughty tern. They never go far from land. You file that away. Your bones say you're still a day out, but your feathered friends say maybe you're closer than you thought. Historians still argue how systematic these observations were. Was it passed down in chance? Memorized by gesture? Or just instinct built over hundreds of voyages? No one agrees. But as that red-tailed bird dips lower, your inner compass shifts again. A crewmate stirs beside you. You whisper, "Bird." He squints into the wind and nods. That's all. No loud declaration. Just the acknowledgement of a clue dropped by nature. You remember learning that early navigators would sometimes release captured birds after days at sea. They'd watch which direction the bird flew, and if it looped back, they'd sigh and know they were still adrift. if it didn't come back? They adjusted course and followed hope. It wasn't foolproof. Nothing out here is. But it was better than drifting. You sit again, eyes still scanning. The birds are moving differently now, not toward you, away. Low, then rising. That rise means they're done fishing. And that often means land is ahead. Still, you don't rush. This isn't a guessing game. It's patience built into the bones of the voyage. You watch, you wait, you hum. You look down at the sea again, wondering if it noticed the birds too. If it lifted a little in greeting, and then, with no ceremony, a shadow glides beneath your canoe. Sleek, fast, a streak of silver. A fish? Number A, dolphin. A whole group now. They dive and reappear in rhythm. Some of them leap, sending arcs of spray that shimmer in the early light. You grin. You've seen this before. Sometimes dolphins escort you in, like guardians or show-offs. The sea smells different now, not in a dramatic way, but you catch the faintest sweetness in the air. Plant life, maybe, or soil, or memory. You've heard elders say you can smell land before you see it, that islands leave a scent trail on the breeze. You never believed them until you noticed it yourself. It's not a perfume, more like a sigh that's passed over ferns and fruit. Still, you keep quiet. You don't announce land until you're sure. The birds move inland, the dolphins vanish. And now, ahead of you, clouds. Not stormy ones, those high, flat-bottomed ones that often sit above islands. They drift differently. Stationary while the world around them moves. That's a clue. They say, look below me. Something's there. You point. Your crew gathers at the edge. No one says anything dramatic. One of them just shrugs and smiles. Another squints, nods once. Everyone knows. The birds, the smell, the clouds, the sea's softened voice. All signs say land is near. But you're not quite there. This moment, this in-between, is sacred. You're still in the domain of stars and salt water, not yet committed to the solidity of shore. There's something you'll miss about this floating life. The breath of the canoe, the language of birds, the way the stars gently scold you when your thoughts drift. You watch one last bird glide past, wings wide, undisturbed. You nod to it. Not a thank you exactly, but something close. The clouds hang like pale veils on the horizon, and somewhere beneath them, though you haven't seen it yet, lies land. You can feel it. The ocean has softened, as if preparing for the embrace. The swells are less restless now, smaller, more uniform. It's like the sea itself is relaxing, exhaling after a long watch. You lean forward, elbows on knees, staring into the distance. You're waiting for the faintest glimmer, maybe a sharp edge, a green brushstroke on the blue canvas. But the island plays coy. You're not meant to see it too early. It reveals itself slowly, humbly, like an old friend stepping out from the trees. In the meantime, you read the signs that don't require sight. The water has changed color. Subtle but noticeable to someone like you. Less indigo, more turquoise. Shallower. You dip your fingers in and feel a warmth that wasn't there before. That's the sun doing its thing, but also the reef stirring beneath, breaking up the deep sea with its quiet, breathing wall of coral. Historians still argue whether ancient navigators could identify reefs by changes in water temperature, or simply by observing fish behavior. Maybe both, maybe neither, but you know that the warmth you feel now means you're not far. You spot a patch of sea that's oddly smooth, unnaturally calm. That's not serenity, that's a sign. It could be a lagoon under cloud cover, or the long shadow of land disrupting the wind. You whisper this to no one in particular. Just to the canoe. And the canoe creaks in response. Agreement, maybe. You glance at your crewmates. Some of them are stirring now, the scent in the air catching their attention. Not just salt anymore, something earthy. Maybe wala, sweet potato, maybe breadfruit trees. You imagine a breeze passing over a cooking fire, lifting a bit of smoke into the sky and sending it to greet you like a handshake. You smile. You've arrived. Not at land yet, but it's certainty. There's a kind of magic in knowing you're close without seeing. Like when someone you love is about to knock at the door and you just know. You remember a lesson from a wayfinder years ago. He pointed at the horizon and said, "You'll see the island, yes. But you'll smell it first. You'll hear the waves change. And if you wait, if you're quiet enough, the land will introduce itself to you." You're quiet now. The only sounds are the lapping of waves and the rhythmic tap of a wooden baler removing water from one of the hulls. It's like a heartbeat. Constant, grounding, and then you see it. A sliver of green, barely above the horizon. It shimmers like a mirage, wobbles, and then steadies. Your heart doesn't leap. That's not how you've been trained. It settles. Lands are not prizes, they're responsibilities. Relationships. You approach them with respect. The island is still far. Maybe hours away. But in your mind, the voyage has already shifted. The anxiety of open sea has been replaced with the awareness of direction fulfilled. The sky agrees. The stars have faded, their work done for the night. The sun is stretching now, painting the clouds with soft golds and pinks. You squint. Yes, trees. You can just make them out. Tall, dark silhouettes against the brightening sky. Possibly coconut palms. Maybe pandanus. You smell moisture in the air, rich soil, ferns. The canoe cuts smoothly now. The ocean seems eager to help you finish this crossing. The birds you watched earlier? Gone inland. Probably bragging about having beat you there. You chuckle. That's fair. The water around you grows lighter still. You begin to see coral heads just beneath the surface, their shadows gently swaying like underwater gardens. You call out a warning to the crew, time to be watchful. Reefs are beautiful, but not forgiving. The hulls glide around them, and you realize something strange. Your hips have gone still. Not because they've forgotten how to sway, but because the sea no longer demands it. The water here is quieter, as if tamed by the presence of the island. And just ahead, where the clouds once lingered, you now see the full outline. A curved bay, a stretch of beach, trees crowding the shoreline. It's beautiful, yes, but more than that, it's familiar. You've never been here, not really, but your ancestors were, and somehow your bones remembered. You reach out and touch the side of the canoe again. Not for balance, for thanks. Land is near. But the journey, that subtle dance of stars, swells, birds, and breath, that journey lingers. It doesn't end just because your feet will soon touch sand. It stays in your shoulders, your knees, your hips. And tonight, as the island rises to greet you, you know you'll never forget how you found it. Now that land is visible, you'd think the tension would melt. But no. Now comes a different kind of focus. You've crossed thousands of miles without ever laying eyes on your destination, and suddenly there it is. Still distant, but definite. A soft ridge of green hills, palmed slopes, and gentle valleys shaped by wind, volcano, and time. You've spotted it, yes, but reaching it is something else entirely. You check the canoe's trim again. Everything feels right. The sail is full, but not straining. The ropes are singing a quiet tune in the breeze. The hulls hum in harmony. It's like the entire canoe is exhaling. The closer you get to the island, the more the sea begins to change. Subtle shifts, temperature, color, movement. The swells lose their long rhythm. They break apart, stumble over each other, get disrupted by the undersea slope. You're not floating in the endless deep anymore. You're in a place where the ocean begins to notice the land beneath. You adjust your posture. Not a command, just a signal. You lean your weight to one side, then ease forward. Your body says what your mouth doesn't. Pay attention, we're coming home. The others stir more now. Someone sits up and squints toward the shoreline, as if confirming the dream is real. Another begins checking the gear, a quick once-over of ropes, lashings, knots. It's not panic. It's ritual, preparation. You're all slipping back into the shape of land people again, even before your feet touch soil. You remember the stories about ancient landfalls, how the last part of the voyage was sometimes the most delicate. Reefs, currents, shifting winds. You couldn't just charge forward and hope. That's how canoes were broken, or worse, people. Historians still debate whether island arrivals were planned to the day or always came with a shrug and a prayer. Some chants suggest that navigators predicted landfall down to the hour. Others admit the ocean had the final say. As you watch the surf building around the reef, you're inclined to agree with both. You reach for a carved paddle and use it to help steer around a coral head. The blade moves like a whisper, parting the water with practiced grace. You don't splash. Splashing is loud. Splashing shows uncertainty. A white bird flutters overhead and lands on the tip of the mast, a tern. It tilts its head, looks at you, and then takes off again. You wonder if it's sizing you up, deciding whether you belong. You do. Closer now, the island reveals more detail. You spot the red blush of hibiscus in bloom, the sway of banana trees, a group of shoreline rocks that look from this distance like sleeping dogs, and the scent. It's no longer subtle, it's alive, fragrant, a mixture of salt and sweetness that your nose recognizes before your mind does. You inhale deeply, and with it comes a wave of memory, not yours, but shared. Inherited, passed down like the chants. You feel for a moment every other navigator who's ever arrived, every voyager who once scanned this same coast, not knowing if it meant welcome or trouble. But today, it feels like welcome. You approach the reef cautiously. The canoe slows, guided by paddle and current. The sound of water grows louder, not crashing, but conversing. Waves breaking, receding, curling into themselves. A breathing rhythm that tells you how deep the reef is, how sharp the coral. You listen carefully. You guide the canoe toward a narrow channel, a break in the reef just wide enough for you to pass. It's a sacred thread through a needle's eye. Too far left, and you'll catch a coral outcrop. Too far right, and you'll be tangled in a rip. But you know this language now. You've listened. You've swayed. Your hips are fluent. The canoe glides through. The lagoon inside is calm like a held breath. The water shifts from turquoise to the soft blue of memories. Beneath you, fish dart through coral gardens. A turtle floats lazily under the hull. You smile. You've entered a place that doesn't care where you came from, only that you arrived respectfully. One crewmate lets out a quiet cheer. Another just dips his hand in the water as if introducing himself to the new place. You remain silent a little longer, letting the canoe drift. This is not just arrival. This is acknowledgement. The island has seen you, heard your chants, watched your stars, and now it opens its arms. You scan the beach. No people yet. Just driftwood, scattered shells, the occasional coconut husk. But it doesn't matter. You're not here for crowds. You're here because you followed a path made of light and instinct. And now that path has led you to stillness. You prepare the canoe for landing. Ropes are loosened, sails furled. You check the lashings one last time. Not because you doubt them, but because it's what you do when you respect the vessel that brought you. As the canoe slides closer to shore, the hulls scrape gently against sand. The sound is almost shy. No fanfare, no drum beats. Just the hush of arrival. You stand finally, letting your legs stretch. The ground beneath is still sea, but your toes are ready for land. And in this moment, with sun rising, trees swaying, and your body still humming from the journey, you realize something deeply quiet and true. You didn't just find the island found you. The canoe rests in the shallow water like it's exhaling. Its journey done, for now. You hop into the lagoon, ankle deep in warmth, and take the first few steps toward the shore. It's always like this at landfall, a strange hesitancy. After so long swaying on the sea, Solid ground feel suspicious, like a surface that forgot how to move. The sand presses soft against the soles of your feet, fine and warm. There are shells here, cowries, bits of coral, a cracked conch. You crouch and run your fingers over them. Not for any reason, just because touching land feels holy. Behind you, the canoe rocks gently in the tide, waiting. She won't go anywhere. Canoes have incredible patience, especially ones that have seen stars and storms and silence. You walk the shoreline. Trees crowd the inland rise. Breadfruit, coconut, and something you can't quite name yet. There's a sense of watchfulness, but not from people, from the land itself. Like the island is giving you a once-over before deciding how it feels about your presence. You leave no footprints behind, not because you're weightless, but because the sand here is wet and forgiving. You hear birds now. Not the seabirds of open water, but island voices, warblers, doves, maybe a myna. They sing without concern. They're not announcing your arrival, they're just being. The others begin unloading the canoe behind you. Bundles of tapa cloth, gourds of fresh water, tools wrapped in leaves. Nothing extravagant, just enough. That's all a voyager ever carries. Enough to start. Enough to offer. Nothing that can't be left behind if the sea calls again. You glance back at the sail, now folded like a sleeping wing. The canoe is smaller on land. She looks like she needs the ocean to stretch her bones. You understand that. But for now, she can rest. You've reached the island, yes, but your role as navigator hasn't ended. In many ways, it's just shifted. Out on the sea, you read stars and swells. Here on land, you read signs in trees and clouds, in wind direction, in the feel of the soil under your heels. One of the elders used to say, "The land is just another kind of ocean." At the time, you thought it was poetic nonsense. But now, walking among ferns and flowering vines, you start to believe him. Everything moves, everything speaks, just in different tongues. You find a smooth patch of rock beneath a tree and sit. Not because you're tired, but because this pause, is part of the story. The stillness after arrival, the quiet before you meet the land fully. You listen, not for voices or drums, but for the deeper tones, the hum of insects, the soft hiss of wind through pandanus leaves, the occasional creak of the canoe shifting in the tide. These are the greetings of the island. Historians still debate whether early Polynesian landfalls involved formal rituals or just a quiet adjustment. Some believe voyagers chanted prayers and made offerings immediately. Others suggest they simply observed, watching, waiting, blending in before making themselves known. You sit somewhere in between. You whisper a few words under your breath. Not a chant exactly, not something learned. Just thanks. A note of appreciation to the trees, the rocks, the clouds for allowing you to arrive. You pull a bit of taro from your pack and eat. It tastes plain but comforting. The kind of food that doesn't ask for compliments. It just fills the space hunger left behind. A few crewmates join you, no one speaks much. Talking seems like something for later. And as you chew, you glance back toward the ocean. The horizon stretches, silver blue and endless. You can almost still see the path you traveled, the invisible trail of stars, the rhythm of waves, the sway of your own hips calling the way forward. It's gone now, of course, dissolved in sky and current. But you remember. You close your eyes and replay it. Not just the route, but the feeling. The deep, intuitive knowing. The strange confidence that lives in your spine more than your mind. Because once you've crossed an ocean like this, once you've read the sky like a friend's face and listened to the sea like it's whispering your name, you don't forget. Not ever. Land may be under your feet now, but the ocean is still in your bones. And that's a kind of arrival, too. Later, when the sun has risen high enough to warm your shoulders and the shadows of palm leaves dance at your feet, you begin unpacking something far more important than gear. Memory. You don't do it intentionally. It arrives the way waves do, rhythmic, unhurried, full of pattern. You begin to recite what you've carried with you the whole voyage. Not supplies, not food, but chants, sequences. The mental architecture of navigation. You sit cross-legged in the sand and begin to hum. Low, steady, like the sea itself is still under you. Then, slowly, you begin to speak. Nahiku rises at the shoulder of night. Makali'i points toward the winter wind. Hokulea dances when the breadfruit ripens. It's not poetry, it's direction. A star chart folded inside your voice. This is the navigator's memory palace, and it has no doors, only rhythm. The chant continues, steady as breath. Each line is a reference point, each stanza an instruction. You've memorized hundreds of stars, their rising and setting positions, their relationships with seasons, with wind, with migration. Historians still debate the cognitive method behind this. Was it rote memorization? A kind of oral cartography? Or a memory palace where stars lived in imagined houses, paths, and doorways built inside the mind? Some researchers swear it's proto-neuroscience. Others say it's song. All you know is that when you speak it, the ocean becomes clear in your head again. You see not just where you came from, but every place you could go next. The chant drifts into silence. You press your palms into the sand, grounding yourself. The island listens, and more importantly, so do the others. A younger crewmate sits nearby, watching you quietly. You don't acknowledge him, not yet, but you slow your chant a little, just enough that he could follow along if he wanted. That's how it works. The next navigator always starts by listening. Your voice dips into the story of winds now, how the moai blows dry and fast from the northeast, how the Kona winds are rare but heavy with rain, how a sudden apa-apea could shift your whole course if you weren't careful. You've memorized the feel of each one, not just direction, but sound, scent, even the way your hair lifts when they arrive. These are not just weather patterns, they are moods of the sky. And you must know them the way you'd know the moods of a close friend. When to speak, when to pause, when to trust, when to wait. You shift to wave memory next. You recite patterns, the deep swells from the south during summer, the shorter choppy ones from the trades, the rare cross patterns that make even the most seasoned crew seasick. Each wave has a name, a shape, a feeling underfoot. You speak their names aloud like you're calling old friends across a valley, and the wind responds. Just a little. A breeze stirs the edge of the trees. Not coincidence. Agreement. The memory palace continues. Birds, cloud formations, sea colors. You even include the funny parts. The time you mistook a drifting log for a whale. The chant about a star that never stayed put. The trickster star, your teacher called it. Always a few degrees off from where it should be. You laugh softly. The others smile. That's part of the knowledge too. Humor. You can't sail thousands of miles with a furrowed brow, you'll just get wrinkles and lost. The young crewmate scoots closer, listening now, eyes fixed on your face. You tilt your head, inviting him silently to join in. He nods once, unsure but willing. You begin again, slower this time. Kalupe o Kawelo swims across the southern sky. Her tail points to calm seas. Her wings open when storms arrive. He echoes the last line back to you, just under his breath. That's enough. You don't say anything. You just continue. Because that's the thing about navigation. It isn't taught in classrooms. It's caught like a flame passed between hands. Or a tune that gets stuck in your head until it becomes your own. And now, as you recite the final lines of your internal map, how to find Tahiti from the curve of Orion's knee, you realize that even here, on land, you are still sailing. Not with the canoe, but with memory. And as long as someone is listening, the stars will always know where to find you. You wake before dawn, not because you planned it, but because the sky, a tapestry you trusted, has vanished. Last night, the stars were patient guides. Now, they're hiding behind a thick blanket of clouds. You lean forward, the canoe tilting gently beneath you, and breathe in the damp, electric scent of rain. It's a reminder that the ocean always has surprises. A storm rolling in isn't exactly a party invite, it's more like a stern warning. Yet here you are halfway between two islands and the sky refuses to help. In moments like this, you don't panic. Breathing is your first line of defense. As your lungs fill with that humid sweetness, you remind yourself, Polynesian navigators have been crossing the Pacific for over 1,000 years without ever seeing the stars on more than a few nights in a row. That's right, this is no new problem. Even the legendary wayfinder Maopialug once sailed for days with no star sighting, relying on his keen eye for waves alone. Mainstream historians acknowledge that navigators often faced weeks without a clear sky as part of their routine. No revered sailor ever called their GPS tech support. Instead, they carried backup plans in their bones. You close your eyes and focus. The wind has picked up, nudging the canoe like an impatient friend. The rain pitter-patters on the deck, a gentle but persistent reminder that the sky once promised you a map, and now it's reneging. You feel the swell pattern shifting, long swells from the south, interacting with newly formed cross-currents from the incoming weather system. Your hips begin to sway, but this time it's different. You're not dancing with familiar rhythms. You're reading cautionary letters in the water's surface. Historians still argue whether backup navigation techniques were considered formal training or simply ad hoc improvisation under duress. Either way, you're improvising now, and it's time to use every sense you've honed. You place a hand on the canoe's rail, feeling the subtle vibrations of each wave. That's your new compass. Every bump, every shift of pressure is a message. Don't drift. Keep heading north-northeast, unless the winds force you otherwise. You smirk at yourself. Round here, you think, if you want reliable directions, ask a wave. It's like trusting a friend who occasionally lies but usually tells the truth if you know how to ask. You remember a fringe tale about a navigator who wore a coconut shell helmet, under the assumption it helped him feel underwater currents better through bone conduction. It's almost absurd, but looking down into the foaming water you realize, maybe he was onto something. Your own hips are doing that job, vibrating, grading, directing. You slip your hand into the cool water to see if there's a temperature shift. Warmer patches indicate shallow reefs, a fringe tip taught by an eccentric elder. It's part myth, part survival hack, and totally vital when the sky is off duty. As dark gray clouds press closer, the world narrows to three things: the swell, the rain, and your instincts. The waves have grown choppier now, no longer gentle breath, but dynamic conversation. Some words you recognize, many you must interpret in real time. You rise and plant your feet firmly, letting your knees bend, absorbing the motion. A keelless canoe doesn't like aggression. It likes gentle suggestions. You whisper directions to it like coaxing a shy puppy to follow. North-northeast, you murmur, even though no one but the waves can hear you. You sense a slight push from the hull. Approval or just a coincidence, you'll take it. Rain drips onto your face like 1,000 tiny drums. You let it wash over you, cooling the flush of concentration. The cold droplets are a kind of meditation, reminding you that despite the challenge, this is peaceful. You try to recall a chant for cloudy nights, but draw a blank. Instead, you hum a lullaby about Maui fishing up the islands. Light, gentle, not too enthusiastic. It would be silly to break into a full chant mid-storm, but a quiet hum steadies your heartbeat. You shuffle to your crewmate's side. He's gripping a paddle, teeth clenched against the spray. "No stars tonight," you say, voice low. You don't ask if he's freaking out. He's too proud to admit it, and you both know it's pointless to pretend everything's fine. "We'll trust the swells." You pat the canoe's rail, a small reassurance. It doesn't reply, but the hull creaks. It could be an answer or the canoe's way of saying, "I got you." "Remember that time I thought I saw a mermaid pod off Molokai?" You joke, eyes twinkling with feigned amusement. He cracks a grin despite the situation. 1 down, 2 to go. Light humor helps keep the fear at bay. You need all hands on deck alert, not trembling around a fantasy mermaid sighting. You also remember a more useful nugget. Polynesian lore mentions certain bioluminescent algae that glow brighter near land, offering navigation cues when both sky and swells betray you. You scoop a bit of water and watch green sparks swirl around your fingers. It's a quirky trick, not universally trusted. Some say the algae can be stirred into false positives if you linger near a passing reef, leading a misguided navigator in circles. Yet right now, you're willing to trust it. Tiny lights like fireflies are surprisingly comforting when the stars are AWOL. You resume your stance at the canoe's prow, feeling the hull tilt into the waves. Without stars, every ripple becomes a star equivalent. The swell's pattern from the east-southeast is stronger than the gust hitting you head-on, so you tilt slightly to compensate. The canoe responds. Each adjustment is subtle, a nudge, not a bash. You imagine the canoe exhaling, folding around you like an old friend in on the secret. It's curious how that thought is exactly the kind of absurdity you might have teased as a kid, boating as cuddles. But right now, it's a truth. The rain escalates into a steady drumbeat, persistent, not overwhelming. You feel every drum hit in your bones. It's almost ASMR-like, the calming, repetitive rhythm that keeps you in a weirdly serene focus. You lean into it. You let the paddle rest in the water, digging in with just the lightest touch. No need for heroics. You're on a lifetime's worth of practice here, even if you didn't know it until this moment. Your other crewmate is on lookout duty, eyes straining through the rain, scanning for any sign of cloud break or land glimmer. It's a tough job, like searching for a single candle in a roaring storm. You don't envy him, but you nod in solidarity whenever he glances back. Every wave tells a story, you remind him, even though you're talking to the space between you. He nods, invisible words passing between you. Trust the waves. Trust the hull. Trust your hips. Suddenly a gust shifts. The canoe yaws, tilting a little more to starboard than you expected. You catch it through your knees and shift weight instantly. Rain sluices across your shirt and down your spine. You adjust the outrigger float slightly to compensate. The canoe rights itself more quickly than you anticipated. You haven't said a word, but the canoe is acknowledging your correction. You imagine it thinking, humans got the memo. You laugh quietly. You're welcome, you say to the canoe, your voice barely audible over the downpour. 3 light jokes in 1,000 words? Check. You earned a mild curse from 2 soaking wet crew because you talk to inanimate objects, but they let it slide. Storm conditions demand flexibility, emotional as much as physical. Navigating this without losing your cool means a sense of humor is essential, like salt in a soup. Just a pinch makes all the difference. Time passes untracked. Without stars, without a horizon that's stable, clouds blur sea and sky into one gray swirl. Yet you persist. You trust the swells tracking north-northeast, the bioluminescent algae brighter on your left side. Hint, land may be nearer there, and the way your hips refuse to lie. You feel a faint warmth underfoot, subtle, but when you press your toes into the hull's beams, you sense it again. That warmth often signifies shallower waters, perhaps even a sunken reef ridge. It's a fringe detail, some navigators scoff at it, but it's ushered you this far. You accept the company of wacky ideas when the sky is silent. You jostle the canoe's hull gently with your knees, prompting a reaction from the canoe. It leans just enough to create a dimple in the water that would push you further north if left unchecked. Better to let it guide you than resist. You grin. You keep me honest, don't you? The canoe remains silent, but you swear the hull responds with a contented creak. You consider your options. Head deeper into the gray void, or wait for the sky to clear. The storm shows no signs of immediate passing. Each moment in these seas is a test of patience and confidence. You choose forward, a motto you've lived by since your earliest training. Drift is not an option. You lean into the hull again, trusting that your hips, your heartbeat, and this vessel all share a common language. An unspoken vow, we will find our way. An hour later, you notice the rain slackening, the swells stabilize, the algae's glow dims, maybe indicating the lighter waters near shore are drawing you away, or perhaps it's just reacting to less churn. Either way, you sense a change. You shift your position further starboard, and the hull tilts in agreement, guiding you around what feels like a coral head. Had the stars reappeared, you'd have needed a minute to recalibrate. Instead, your body and the canoe are already one, still ignoring the sky's betrayal. Then, through a break in the clouds, a lone star winks. Just a single spark. You let out a breath, half relief, half amusement. Even that flicker feels like a hearty, welcome back. You murmur, nice of you to show up. No grand celebrations. Just you, the canoe, and that one stubborn point of light, reminding you that even storms have an end. The star grows bolder as more peek through. Hakulea finally reveals itself again, reassuring you that yes, you are indeed moving roughly north-northeast. You acknowledge it silently, grateful for the mended alliance. As the sky gradually recovers its glitter, you straighten your posture. The canoe hums a content note, as if happy to share the responsibilities once more. And you're still learning how to navigate when the primary guide vanishes. You realize storms and cloudy nights aren't interruptions. They're part of the story. Without them, you'd be a navigator who never learned full competence. You might even be a terrible sailor, misplaced trust and certainty. But here, in this gray chapter, you found something deeper. Confidence in uncertainty. The waves continue their conversation. You continue yours, rocking gently with the hull as the sky brightens. You won't need to do this again every night, hopefully, but you'll never forget the hush of rain on deck and how your hips kept you steady when the sky refused to share its secrets. The storm has passed, but its memory lingers. The stars return slowly, cautiously, as if embarrassed for having disappeared when you needed them most. You forgive them. You always do. The sea is calm again, the clouds broken into harmless strands drifting west. The moon peeks out, thin, curious, and casts a silver road across the water. You follow it, not because it's your planned direction, but because it feels like a small gift. The crew has settled into the hush that always follows a storm. No one wants to be the first to speak. The canoe rocks softly now, a lullaby in motion, and even your shoulders begin to relax. You lean back against a curved beam and exhale. The tension seeps out of your chest like steam from a cracked coconut. But the journey's not over. You're bound for a different island this time. One not on any map, not even your mental ones. An imagined place drawn from memory and legend. It doesn't have a name, not really. Just a direction. North-northeast. A route passed down through half-remembered chants and the wrinkles at the corner of an elder's eye. You stand and gaze forward. The sea is flatter now, almost suspiciously calm. That's not always a good thing. Too much stillness, and you begin to lose your bearings. It's easy to navigate when the stars and swells argue with you. They give you feedback. But when everything goes quiet, that's when doubt whispers loudest. You look to your hips again. Still swaying, but gently. They aren't worried, and neither are you. A crewmate offers a half smile and a bite of dried banana wrapped in ti leaf. It's slightly warm from sitting near his body. You chew it slowly, grateful. The sweetness fills your mouth with something more than calories. It tastes like shared trust. You remember another lesson. How ancient wayfinders could see islands long before landfall? Not with eyes, but with instincts. They watched for cloud patterns? Yes. Bird behavior? Yes. But also, light? The way light bounced differently off water near land. Not reflected more, just softer. Like a whispered promise. Historians still debate this, whether such optical awareness was teachable or just poetic nonsense born from wishful voyagers. But you've seen it. The way a patch of ocean suddenly feels heavier, denser with meaning, as if something waits just beneath it. You begin scanning for that now, and then you notice the wind. It's shifted, not drastically, just enough that the sail tugs slightly against its rigging. It's a directional wind, one your memory links to land proximity. You call out softly. The crew adjusts the sail. No need to shout. Everything out here happens in whispers. The canoe bends into the new wind, its lashings creaking in contentment. You think of all the hands that tied those knots, past voyages, past voyagers. Some names you know. Others are just bones in the coral now, but their work remains. The canoe is a kind of time machine, carved, knotted, and woven by centuries of memory. You glance down at the hull. It's damp with salt, speckled with dried sea foam. A flying fish lies near the edge, having leapt aboard during the storm. You pick it up gently, offer a quiet thanks, and release it back into the water. It flicks away without a sound. Sometimes nature gives you stowaways. Sometimes it gives you metaphors. And then, there it is. The cloud. Not big, not dramatic. Just stationary. It hovers in a way clouds usually don't. While others drift lazily west, this one holds its ground. That's your cue. You remember this from training. Clouds often anchor themselves above land, clinging to the warmth rising from trees and hills. You squint. Just beneath it, the ocean glimmers wrong. Too smooth. Too matte. Like something beneath is dulling the water's usual sparkle. You call it out, not with excitement, with certainty. The crew looks. No one cheers. They simply nod. That's how you know it's real. And now you begin to feel it. An island approaching. Or maybe you're approaching it. You can't tell the difference anymore. Either way, it's close. Not in hours, in heartbeats. Your breath slows. Your body adjusts. Every muscle listens for change. The sea speaks again, this time in a softer voice. The canoe sighs forward as if relieved, as if it too has carried this quiet hope. You scan the sky again. Stars to the right, stars to the left. But one is missing, blocked by something dark, something solid. Land. You say nothing. You let the silence confirm it. Your crewmates follow your gaze. Their bodies still, their faces calm. There it is. No speech. No pointing. Just the acknowledgement that the sky and sea have both kept their promises. You rest your hand on the deck. The wood is warm now, holding the heat of sun and journey. You close your eyes, but you don't need to see anymore. You've navigated through a starless night, trusted the waves when nothing else remained, and now, here it is. The island that waited for your remembering. The stars overhead have finished their slow spin for the night, and the first hush of morning creeps across the horizon. This is not a dramatic sunrise. It's the quiet kind, pale and washed out, where light arrives like a whisper instead of a proclamation. The island is clearer now, its silhouette sharpening, its hills brushing against the sky like ink on handmade paper. And still, you don't speak. You sit on the edge of the canoe, feet trailing in the water, and feel the tug of tide beneath you. Even now, even with the journey nearly complete, you are reading, always reading. The sea may not write in letters, but it leaves notes everywhere, in pressure, in motion, in rhythm. You turn slightly to watch the crew behind you. One is braiding the end of a cord that started to fray. Another is rubbing his shoulder, wincing slightly. The storm took its toll, but they're calm. There's a quiet pride in their movements, the way of people who know they've arrived, even if they haven't quite landed yet. The island is near enough now to see detail, not just trees, but the shapes of their leaves, not just rocks, but the shadows they cast on sand. And then there's something more. Human shape. A figure near the shoreline. Maybe more than one. Still and small at this distance. Watching. You don't wave. Not yet. That would be loud. You let the canoe speak for you with its slow, steady glide across the lagoon. Its presence says enough. We've come respectfully. We followed the stars. We remembered the way. You look down into the water again. Coral heads pass below, soft in the early light, their branches shifting like underwater lungs. Fish flicker between them, silver flashes that seem to move just before you expect them to. You note that. Their speed, their direction. Even the fish are part of the language here. Historians still argue about what happened in moments like this. Did ancient navigators announce themselves with chants? With drums? With silence? Some accounts say a shell was blown, a conch echoing over the bay. Others suggest the sea itself made the only sound, and that was enough. You sit with that uncertainty. It feels honest. The canoe rocks slightly as the current changes. You're now within the reach of the reef, the protected cradle of the island's embrace. You whisper a small phrase under your breath, a chant you half remember from a teacher long ago. Not for the crew, not even for the island. Just for you. For the memory. As you near the beach, you rise, knees stiff, hips still swaying slightly even as the canoe slows. It's funny, after weeks of relying on the sea's rhythm, your body doesn't quite know what to do without it. You step awkwardly at first, like a dancer who's forgotten the music ended. You see more people now, standing, watching, their figures unmoving like stone statues at the edge of dawn. You wonder what they see. Strangers? Cousins? Ghosts? A child steps forward, barefoot, holding a stick or maybe a spear. It's hard to tell at this distance. The others remain still. You motion for your crew to pause. Let the canoe drift. There is power in patience, in not rushing this final step. You remember a story, one of those fringe tales scholars debate. It spoke of a navigator who, upon arriving at a new island, refused to step onto land for a full day. He waited. Let the island reveal itself. Let the ocean rest. Let his body absorb the silence. Maybe you'll do that too. The beach grows nearer. You can hear the waves now, tiny ones lapping at the shore, rhythmic as breathing. You begin to see the faces of the watchers, dark-eyed, expressionless, but not unkind. You kneel again, resting a hand on the side of the canoe. You speak to it, quietly. Mahalo, you say. Thank you. It's silly talking to a boat. But not really. It brought you here. It held you through storms. It let your hips become wise. You rise slowly and step to the front of the deck. The child still stands there, watching. Something in his posture feels familiar, alert but unafraid, as if he too knows the rhythm of waves, as if in another season he might be the one standing on the deck, swaying quietly, reading the stars and the sea. You nod once, he doesn't nod back, but you get the sense he's understood. Your crew waits behind you. The canoe drifts, now just yards from the beach. The sand is pale, untouched. The island has not yet spoken, but it listens. And you, sea-worn, salt-wrinkled, memory-filled, do not need a reply. You have already arrived. You sit again, not out of exhaustion, but reverence. The canoe rests, its hull brushing the shallows. The water here is thin and glassy, warm as bathwater, and it reflects the island like a memory that's still being formed. You stare at the shoreline, not moving, not yet. You've arrived, but arriving and landing are not the same thing. Behind you, the crew murmurs in low voices, checking the lashings, preparing the bundles for shore. They know the routine, but they also know the unspoken rule. You don't step onto new land until the land invites you. You inhale deeply. The scent here is richer than any ocean breeze. Ferns, damp bark, the faint perfume of distant blossoms. It's a scent so full of life it almost feels heavy. Your lungs expand more slowly, as if adjusting to the oxygen of a place not made of salt. There's a rhythm to this place, you can feel it already. Not the rhythm of waves, a new one. The pulse of trees swaying in wind you cannot yet see. The hush of soil, not sea foam. The call of birds that don't circle over open ocean but perch in branches, calling names you've never heard. You lean over and scoop a bit of water, letting it drip through your fingers. The drops fall slower here, as if reluctant to leave your palm. You wonder if the sea is sad to see you go. Or maybe it's just reflecting your own hesitation. You recall a chant about island arrivals, one that listed every sign to look for. Birds that land on certain trees, cloud forms over ridgelines, the behavior of crabs along the shore. Each one said to confirm whether the place was generous or guarded. You've seen most of those signs, but you still wait. Because that's part of it, too. Historians still debate whether these rituals were superstition or instinct, whether the chants were literal survival guides or symbolic doorways into a more respectful way of being. You suspect they were both. The line between myth and method is blurred when you're sailing on memory. A gust of wind picks up, rustling the sailcloth still tied neatly at the center of the canoe. The cloth flutters like a wing, restless but not yet flying. You reach out and smooth it down. Not because it's out of place, because it reminds you that journeys don't end. They just shift forms. The watchers on shore haven't moved. The child is still there, standing like a sentinel carved from driftwood. Another figure joins him, an elder perhaps, or simply someone whose walk is slower, weighted by years. They say nothing, but their presence feels like a question. You think, are we welcome? But you also know that the answer isn't spoken with words. It's in the wind, the water, the way the trees haven't shifted, the way the clouds have stayed. You stand and stretch your arms over your head, not dramatically, just enough to shake the ocean's stiffness from your bones. You turn back to your crew. They're watching you now. You nod once. That's all they need. Two of them step off into the shallows, guiding the canoe a little closer, careful not to scrape coral or crush the fringe of seagrass at the edge. You remain at the bow, watching the shore grow nearer by inches. The child steps back now, not in fear, but making room. Finally, your feet touch bottom. The sand is soft and surprisingly cold, colder than you expected after the warmth of the lagoon. It's like the land is testing you. Do you really want to be here? Are you prepared for what this new ground will ask of you? You are. You take slow steps toward the beach, your legs still subtly swaying, the sea not quite ready to let you go. The salt is dried on your skin, forming delicate lines like the veins of leaves. You don't brush it off. You don't speak as you reach the shore. You don't need to. Instead, you kneel. Not low, not submissive, just grounded. The way a tree kneels when it takes root. The way a canoe kneels in shallow water after a long voyage. The child watches. The elder places a hand on his shoulder, and then something unexpected. The elder lifts a hand. Not a wave exactly, more of a soft gesture, a motion that says, "We see you. We recognize your effort. It's enough." You bow your head once the way you would to a familiar star at first light. Behind you, your crew begins unloading. Quietly. Carefully. You stay kneeling a moment longer. Because the ground beneath you is not just soil, it is story. Waiting to be written with each footprint. And you, humble reader of stars and swells, are about to learn a new language. One not of constellations or coral or cloud, but of stillness. You rise slowly from the sand, your knees brushing away grains that cling like memory. The elder and the child turn and begin walking up the beach, not away, but ahead, as if to say, "Come." The island is ready for you now. You don't rush to follow. This last moment at the shoreline deserves its full breath. The tide licks your heels as if to remind you were a part of something vaster just hours ago. That ocean, which held your life for days and nights without end, is now behind you. Not forgotten, not left. Just paused. You turn to the crew. They've brought the canoe to rest in the shallows, lifting its outriggers to higher ground. No ceremony, just practiced care, reverence in motion. One of them meets your gaze and nods. Another tightens the bundle of provisions with the kind of methodical tenderness you'd expect for a newborn. You join them for a moment, running your hand along the canoe's edge, feeling the warmth still stored in the wood. You press your forehead gently against its curved side, whispering thanks one more time. You know it's just wood and cord and sail, but also not. This canoe didn't just carry your body, it carried your becoming. You gather your things, not much. A gourd of water, a length of cord, a rolled mat made from pandanus leaves. Everything else you brought, you already gave to the sea. You follow the others up the beach, your footprints filling with water behind you. As you walk, you begin to hear the forest, layered and low like a chanted harmony. Not all at once, but in unfolding waves. Wind in the canopy, the thud of a breadfruit falling somewhere unseen. Birds greeting the new light like they were waiting for you specifically. You pause under a stand of hala trees. Their roots twist like dancers. Their leaves whisper. You reach out and pluck one of the long leaves. Run your fingers along its edge. It will dry eventually, and when it does, you'll weave it into something. A mat, a bag, a new sail, maybe even a memory. Historians still wonder what first encounters on islands like this looked like, whether they involved trade, intermarriage, conflict, or quiet cooperation. You think of all that, sure, but mostly you think about what's required to be received, not to conquer, not to colonize, but to arrive and be invited to stay. You've already made your offering, your journey. Up ahead, the elder stops beneath a giant kukui tree. He rests one hand on the bark, waiting. The child beside him fidgets slightly, glancing at you, then at the ground, then back. A bird flits between branches. Nothing is spoken. Still, it's clear. This is where your first words will be offered. You step forward. You don't launch into explanation or storytelling. You don't present a gift wrapped in meaning. You just say what's true. We followed the stars. We listened to the sea. We let the wind teach us. The elder nods. The child tilts his head as if deciding whether to remember your face. Then the elder steps aside and motions you forward, not with grandeur, but with the simplicity of someone saying, "You belong now." You pass beneath the kukui and the light changes. Softer. Filtered. Like the first page of a new book written in a language you haven't learned yet, but somehow already understand. You will live here now, for a while at least. There will be work, clearing land, learning trees, gathering roots you don't yet recognize. But there will also be story. The kind that lives in firelight, in the way the smoke curls up as someone speaks about the old voyages. One night soon, you will sit with others. You will point to a star and someone will ask, "Did you follow that one?" And you'll say, "Yes." And they will nod like that means something, because here it does. The canoe rests down near the beach, and your hips still sway when you walk. You are sea-born now, and always will be. You take one final breath beneath the kukui. The elder begins walking again, deeper into the island, the path just forming ahead. And you follow, because wayfinding doesn't end at arrival. It begins again each time you step into the unknown with trust, and now you rest. You leave the canoe behind, moored gently in the shallows, its curved hull still rocking with the memory of the sea. The sky above softens to a gentle lavender, the stars fading one by one like the last notes of a lullaby. The trees sigh in rhythm with your breath, and the earth beneath you feels firm but kind. Your body is still, but it remembers the motion. The subtle rise and fall, the hush of waves brushing past, the long silence between stars. That rhythm doesn't leave you. It lives in your bones now. It speaks in your breath. You let your eyes close. Your thoughts drift like canoes across a mirror-like lagoon, slow, quiet, unhurried. No waves here, no winds pulling you forward, only the stillness of having arrived. The journey was long, but you never rushed. You listened, you swayed, you adjusted, You trusted. Now the stars are gone, tucked behind the gentle light of dawn. And you? You are safe. You are home. And you are held. By memory, by motion, by the story you now carry. So sleep. Let the ocean rock you one last time. Let the wind brush your hair like a familiar hand. Let the quiet wrap itself around you like a woven mat. And know as you drift that you'll always find your way back, because the stars will always remember your name. End of script. Sweet dreams.